In its earliest days before coal was king, one of the area's primary industries revolved around the growing and curing of tobacco. With as many as 7 tobacco curing barns in and around the young town of Marion, residents referred to the odor the curing process emitted as airing out the money. Goodspeed's history of Williamson County from 1880 noted the county's climate and soil were ideal for growing the high-demand commodity, making it an extremely lucrative cash crop for anyone able to grow and harvest the popular weed. After many years growing tobacco on his family's vast farm adjoining Marion, Francis Goodall sold his flour and wool mill on West Main Street to focus on the business of tobacco. Purchasing lot number 4 in block 12 of Marion's public square, Frank, as he was referred to by family and friends, began construction on a substantial brick structure with storefronts on the public square as well as frontage along busy North Market Street. By the spring of 1873, Frank and his wife, Mary Jane, would move into their new home located at 204 Public Square. Occupying half of the second floor, the Goodall family created a beautiful home right in the heart of the little town. The Goodall Building was also home to the Simmons House, Marion's only first-class hotel and restaurant at the time, with the remainder of the building occupied by a barber, a tailor, and for many years the Marion Clothing Company. With construction of the Goodall block, Frank had become an important real estate developer, contributing substantially to the early growth of the young town of Marion. Unfortunately, no known images of the original ornate 1873 Goodall building survive today, leaving us with only descriptions from contemporary publications and the details from Sanborn fire maps. Described in 1879 article from the Marion Monitor as the arbiter of good taste and decorum, it would be Marion resident Cyril de Klein who would take over management of the hotel at the Goodall Building. Now called Klein House, Cyril de Klein, known affectionately as Grandma Klein, along with her daughter Minnie, would continue the hotel's reputation of first-class accommodations. Highly anticipated each year, Cyrilda and Minnie would host an annual Christmas dinner at Klein House, which became one of the town's most talked about social events of the year. For those not lucky enough to make it onto the invitation list, the Marion Monitor newspaper would share a detailed account of the evening's festivities, along with commentary from those fortunate enough to be in attendance. The Goodall's 1873 addition to the town square began a community push to replace all wood frame structures facing the square with buildings constructed of brick and stone, primarily to reduce fire risks, but many publications of the day illustrated the strong sense of community pride as the driving force. By the turn of the new century, the brick-paved square would be surrounded on all 4 sides by buildings of brick and stone, giving Marion its quintessential element of Americana, its iconic town square. At 2 a.m. on Saturday, December 8, 1898, all that brick and stone was tested when fire bells rang out across Marion as flames were seen leaping from the Goodall house. A bucket brigade of 150 buckets turned out in full force, carrying a continual stream of water, which did manage to contain the fire with a great deal of effort. But by daylight it was clear the Goodall Building and all of its contents would be a complete loss. Wasting no time after the fire, Frank was eager to rebuild, having the rubble cleared down to the basement level. Today, some exposed original bricks in the lowest level of the building still show signs of scorching from that 1898 fire. Built upon the same footprint as the original Goodall Building, we'll never truly know how it differs from the 1873 version. But the building from 1900 that we are familiar with today has the boasting rights of being the first building on the square wired for electricity during construction. Although Frank Goodall insisted on the addition of gas lights as well, in case that electricity thing doesn't catch on. In 1904, Frank and Mary Jane's adult widowed daughter, Annie, married Dr. Edward Reed of Massachusetts. During a quick visit to Marion before relocating to Worcester, Massachusetts, many intrigued residents were fortunate enough to hear stories about the family's visit to the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis. What started as a small group of family and friends quickly grew into a small crowd of Marionites, eager to hear first-hand accounts from the world's greatest fair. It is also around this time that city directories show the first of many restaurants located in the lowest level of the Goodall Building. The lunch counter of Caldwell and Furlong would be the first restaurant to open at 103 North Market. City directories show the cafe in operation until 1916, when the name would change to the Jim Cafe. Based on a pet name for his wife, J.L. Robinson's popular cafe served as the local hotspot to eat and meet. A staple in downtown Marion through its explosive growth of the early 1900s, it was the Jim Cafe that often became the backdrop to history thanks to its location and proximity to the town square and the Williamson County Courthouse. By 1939, it would be Achilles Carathanos and his brother Ike who would take over operations of the small restaurant. And for the next 27 years, the Greek brothers would maintain the popularity of the Jim Cafe by emphasizing its great reputation while infusing new traditions of their own, such as being a consistent supporter of the Marion High School yearbook with full-page photographic ads. I would say money well spent when you consider the historical value to dollar ratio for each ad. By 1966, the Goodall Building would change hands once again when businessman and restaurateur Waylon Sims would purchase the Jim Cafe along with the 66-year-old building. With plans for an upscale restaurant and lounge, the space was expanded, taking over the entire lower level of the building. And by the holiday season of 1966, the new Uptowner restaurant and lounge became an instant downtown hit. It was during this time the rumors of a tunnel system running around the town square began to spread like wildfire. A topic of some truth along with a dash of mystery, many of the buildings around the square did have hollow areas or tunnels running along the perimeter. In most cases, these were simply coal chutes for easy coal delivery to the basement level where furnaces were typically located. In the case of the Goodall Building, the hollow space under the front sidewalks were simply compensating for the slope of the terrain present when the building was constructed. By 1966, the Uptowner would utilize these small cave-like grottos as private booths. Today, those private booths are long gone, but those tales of secret nefarious tunnels do seem to persist. Through the 1980s and 90s, the Goodall Building continued to be the home of various retailers, along with a number of apartments on the building's upper floor. Although Mr. Sims had left the restaurant business, the popular eatery continued as Pearson's for many years, followed by Stewart's in the 90s, and finally, for a hot minute, the space was home to the Bavarian House restaurant, featuring German food, but oddly, no beer. Sadly, by the early 2000s, the building was showing signs of rapid decline, with the restaurant space vacant for many years and general maintenance being delayed or ignored altogether. It was clear the historic building's future was, at best, uncertain. But by the spring of 2020, the 120-year-old Goodall Building would get a new lease on life when Marion resident and history buff Jeff Mayer would purchase the building intent on saving the historic structure from ruin. Just as renovations were underway in August of 2020, the building's western wall became the site of a mammoth public work of art with the installation of End of Shift. Spanning the entire block, the image pays tribute to the area's generations of coal miners who risked life and limb to provide for their families. Taking the building down to its core during a thorough multi-year renovation has given Frank Goodall's 1900 addition to Marion's town square a new face and a new life in a modern world. With his plan to continue the building's history as a mixed-use development, Mr. Mayer included 4 apartments on the upper floor. First-class accommodations that would make even Grandma Klein proud beyond measure. Reviving the building's history of quality eateries and retailers, today we have Granny Puckett's Bakery and Milkweed Provisions carrying on that entrepreneurial spirit and becoming community favorites in the process. In the fall of 2023, the preservation group known as Landmark Illinois recognized the preservation work done to the Goodall Building, presenting the Richard A. Dryhouse Foundation Preservation Award to Jeff Mayer in a public presentation held at the Marion Cultural and Civic Center. A recognition that amplifies this community's desire to embrace progress while remaining firmly planted in our past. This is Sean Vincelette, and that is one of the stories of Marion, Illinois.